Almost everyone knows themselves as the right part of the way, even knows their rules, but doesn't understand exactly what they are. What is this vector? Let's try to figure out if it really works. It is important to note exactly what we are talking about when we first say vector. In the field of epidemiology, a vector is used to identify an organism that transfers infection from one host to another. In the C++ programming language, a vector is an implementation of a dynamically resizable array data structure. Although all these definitions are interesting, what we will consider in this article will be the Euclidean vector, that is, the geometric vector. A vector is typically drawn as an arrow, the direction is expressed by where the arrow points, and the magnitude is also expressed by the length of the arrow. Velocity, force, acceleration and weight are examples of vector quantities. Vector operations. Vectors can be added, removed. As a result of this process, the compound vector occurs. If we look at the following example, the two vectors involved will affect each other and eventually cause the direction of the aircraft to change slightly. As a result, the movement of the aircraft will be the same as the combination of two vectors. Vectors can be multiplied by a constant. After all, this multiplication affects their power. If the constant we multiply is a positive integer, the vector is strengthened in the same direction, and if it is negative, in the opposite direction. If the number we multiply is in the range of 0 to 1, it also weakens. At the same time, a vector can also be multiplied by another vector. When performing vector operations, it is usually necessary to divide the vectors into x and y parts as follows. When we divide a vector in this way, each part is called a component. Then we can get new vectors by adding x and y within themselves. Vector negation. Negating a vector means bringing it into the form of a vector in the opposite direction. A vector pointing northeast will look southwest after negation. To negate a vector, we put a minus sign on each component. Subtraction of vectors also means addition with a negated vector. Length of vector. To get the length/magnitude of a vector, we use the Pythagorean theorem, which you can remember from your mathematics lessons. Multiplication of a vector by a vector. Inner product. An internal product is a product based on a component, whose results we all collect together. The internal product of two vectors is also equal to the product of the scalar product of their length by the cosine of the angle between them. The most important advantage of internal product is that we can calculate the angle between two vectors using the following method. Cross product. Cross product is defined only in three-dimensional space. It takes two non-parallel vectors as input and produces a third vector perpendicular to both input vectors.